If you close your eyes and picture New York's Bronx in the late 1930s, you might imagine jam-packed apartment blocks, narrow streets bustling with rambunctious kids, and families scraping by on modest earnings. On January 10, 1939, in the midst of that vibrant chaos, Salvatore Mineo Jr. was born. Sal for short, a scrappy Italo-American who quickly discovered that life could be a rough business. His father ran a humble coffin manufacturing trade, and his mother, a fiery presence, fought to shield her children from an environment teeming with petty crime. But the Bronx was the Bronx, and by the time Sal was 10, he'd earned a reputation as a restless child with a talent for small-time delinquency, a stolen wallet, a smashed window, a half-hearted scuffle on the street corner. One day in 1949, he got into enough trouble that the legal system gave him a stark choice: reform school or the stage. On the surface, those two roads couldn't be more different. But his mother, refusing to see him vanish into correctional obscurity, made an impulsive, life-saving gamble. She enrolled Sal in a performance academy. That detour changed everything. By 1955, the kid from the Bronx had come a staggering distance, straight into the bright lights of Hollywood, playing a tender, tortured teenager named Plato in Rebel Without a Cause. The film catapulted Sal Mineo, still just 16 when production began, into instant stardom. Audiences identified with his gentle heartbreak and timid devotion to James Dean's rebellious Jim Stark. Hollywood critics marveled at how Sal's eyes could speak volumes, how he bared a vulnerability rarely seen in teen characters on screen. For that performance, Sal was nominated for a Best Supporting Actor Oscar, and the press anointed him the new teenage idol, on par with Dean and Natalie Wood. But swirling amid that acclaim were rumors about Mineo's personal life, particularly the hush-hush suggestion that he might be gay or bisexual, that the on-screen intensity with Dean reflected something more real than purely cinematic chemistry. The press never found solid proof, but the speculation gave his teen idol brand a shadowy edge. And in 1950s Hollywood, that shadow could cost him everything. As the 1950s progressed, Sal juggled fame with a personal life that was anything but ordinary. He soared in more films, notably Giant, 1956 cameo, and Exodus, 1960. For Exodus, he won another Oscar nomination, cementing him as a serious actor, not just a teen star riding the coattails of James Dean's rebellious aura. During that shoot, he fell for British actress Jill Haworth, a luminous blonde who was equally smitten. They got engaged in a swirl of romance that the tabloids devoured. But then she abruptly broke it off, explaining tearfully to friends that Sal was involved with men and that she couldn't handle the complicated truth. Soon after, rumors pegged Hollywood producer Aaron Spelling as a romantic rival. The tabloids reported a bizarre night where Mineo, drunk or high on adrenaline, slugged Spelling in a nightclub because of some entanglement involving Jill. The scandal hammered away at Sal's carefully maintained good guy image, leaving fans wondering who the real Sal Mineo was, the gentle boy from Rebel or the impulsive brawler fueling tabloid columns. Career-wise, the 1960s were hardly smooth. He recorded pop songs that initially sold well, but later tanked. Acting roles grew sporadic, partly because he'd aged out of the teen idol bracket, partly because studios wanted straight-laced men with wide shoulders, and partly because behind closed doors, Sal's personal struggles with substance use were causing his once luminous star to dim. Rumors about pot, LSD, possibly even heroin, began circulating. Some claimed they saw needle marks on his arms, though nothing was ever definitively proven. Sal insisted these were hormone injections for some medical reason. Close friends like Michael Mason, rumored to be an intimate partner, argued Sal didn't use heroin, just stimulants or pot. But the swirling gossip about doping clung to him, especially as producers noticed his erratic behavior on set or his difficulty memorizing lines. The sizzling teen idol of the 1950s was morphing into an outsider figure in the 1960s, overshadowed by more stable talents. Yet in 1969, Sal made an extraordinary pivot. He agreed to direct and star in a West Coast production of Fortune and Minzais, a raw theatrical piece exploring homosexual relationships in prison. Graphic, unapologetic, and far ahead of its time. The show's success in the LGBTQ+ community was immediate. Critics praised Sal's directorial boldness and the personal courage it took for a man once marketed as the ultimate hetero-teen idol to reveal an understanding of same-sex desire. But Hollywood's conservative establishment bristled. They saw it as a scandalous spectacle, something that might hamper Sal's chances at mainstream film roles. He didn't care. Freed from the illusions that once caged him, he was forging a new path, a rebel actor unafraid of taboo subjects. From that point on, his projects straddled a fine line between edgy independent features and sporadic TV guest roles, offerings from mainstream networks that saw him as colorful, though not quite trustworthy. In 1972, Sal Mineo gave an interview that forced the entire entertainment world to catch its breath. "I have had homosexual experiences," he admitted, "and I'm not ashamed." By then, the Stonewall riots had already sparked a shift in queer activism, but the mainstream remained deeply prejudiced. Sal's statement, though bracing, was overshadowed by the fact that he was no longer a household name. Only the dedicated fans and industry insiders realized what a milestone confession it was. Here was a star from the Rebel Without a Cause era, publicly acknowledging a truth that might have ended his career if he'd said it in 1955. For Sal, it felt freeing, even if it meant fewer roles. He seemed content with forging an authentic path, maybe doing stage gigs that appealed to him, maybe living more openly. Then, in 1976, Sal found a role that paralleled his own journey in a curious way, playing a bisexual thief in the stage production of P.S. Your Cat is Dead. The part was comedic and edgy, letting him show off comedic timing, sexual fluidity, and a pinch of the old rebellious spark that fans once adored. Night after night, he delivered a performance that critics hailed as witty, genuine, and gutsy. For once, the line between personal truth and stage persona felt paper thin. He was tapping into his own experiences. But it was on a chilly February night after a day of rehearsals that the darkest hour of Sal Mineo's life arrived. Leaving the West Hollywood Theater around 9:30 p.m. on February 12, 1976, he parked in the carport of his small apartment complex. Under the dim lights, he carried scripts or perhaps leftover dinner. Out of nowhere, a figure lunged. Within seconds, Sal was stabbed in the chest, the blade piercing his heart. Neighbors heard a scream, then footsteps pounding away. They rushed down to find him collapsed in a pool of blood, eyes glazed in shock. Paramedics arrived quickly, but to no avail. By 9:55 p.m., Sal Mineo, once the boyish Plato who charmed America, was pronounced dead, a single stab wound silencing him forever. The crime scene was baffling. His wallet and valuables lay intact, so robbery seemed unlikely. Speculation raged, a homophobic attack, a drug deal gone sour, something personal. The police, short on leads, questioned acquaintances and rummaged through his chaotic personal diaries. For a year, the press churned out theories. Some tabloids indicted the gay underworld. Actor slain in lover's quarrel, they teased. Hollywood reeled, remembering the tragedy that once engulfed other Rebel alumni. James Dean's fatal crash, Natalie Wood's drowning years later. Finally, in 1977, a break arrived. Teresa Williams accused her husband Lionel Ray Williams of bragging about killing Mineo while out robbing people. Police verified that Lionel had targeted multiple victims that night, though the motive behind stabbing Sal remains murky. In 1979, Lionel Williams stood trial, facing second-degree murder charges, among other robberies. He got 51 years in prison, but was paroled in 1990, eventually dying in obscurity. The uneasy question lingered. Did he pick Sal randomly, or did something more sinister prompt the attack? The funeral for Sal took place on February 17, 1976, at the Holy Trinity Church in Mamaroneck, close to the neighborhood he once roamed as a rebellious Bronx kid. Some 250 relatives, plus a few hundred fans, gathered in mourning. Critics commented on how the once unstoppable teen idol from Rebel Without a Cause had ended up in a near-unknown coffin, overshadowed by bigger tragedies in Hollywood's savage timeline. He was buried at Gate of Heaven Cemetery in Hawthorne, New York, the same cemetery where Babe Ruth is interred. The headline said it all: Rebel's final rest. The triad of Rebel Without a Cause alumni, James Dean, Natalie Wood, and Sal Mineo, had all met premature or tragic ends, spurring fans to speak of a rebel curse. For years, his legacy mostly faded into cult memory. But then from 2010 onward, something shifted. People began revisiting the 50s method actors, recounting how Sal's portrayal of teenage confusion in Rebel preceded the wave of raw teen angst that would become a Hollywood staple. Michael Greg Michaud's biography, Sal Mineo, a biography, 2010, detailed the complexities and dignity beneath the scandalous headlines. The book cleared some myths, reaffirming that while Sal had dabbled in substances, he wasn't the hopeless junkie some tabloids painted him as. More crucially, it celebrated him as an uncredited LGBTQ+ pioneer in a film culture that stifled gay actors. After all, Sal took bold steps from directing Fortune and Men's Eyes to playing roles that unabashedly embraced queer themes, well before mainstream acceptance. Younger fans, discovering Rebel Without a Cause on streaming services, were jolted by Sal's intensity, drawn to the tragedy of an actor whose real heartbreak matched the pathos he displayed on screen. All these years later, Sal Mineo's name stands as a quiet testament to a star who bridged two eras: the tail end of the old Hollywood system, with its strict moral codes, and the emergence of the rebellious 1960s youth culture. Alongside James Dean's crash and Natalie Wood's drowning, his murder is the final note of a trio that felt cursed. But his story, steeped in self-discovery, unwavering honesty, and unfortunate vulnerability, transcends mere tragedy. He was the boy from the Bronx who once faced a reformatory, who soared to Oscar-nominated fame at 17, who unashamedly embraced roles and projects that flouted social taboos, and who left behind a bittersweet memory for fans willing to see beyond the tabloid headlines. The star on Hollywood Boulevard, the swirl of rumor about men and women, the short but unforgettable filmography, the final savage moment in a West Hollywood driveway, those puzzle pieces come together in the tapestry of Sal Mineo's life, a life that pulses with both hope and sorrow, forging a legacy that demands we remember him not merely as the other kid in Rebel Without a Cause, but as one of the era's bravest, most complex young actors, taken from us well before the final curtain.